It's true that sometimes things are lost in translation. There's a powerful scene in Matthew when Jesus and Satan are toe-to-toe after Jesus has been in the wilderness, and Satan is tempting Jesus, testing Jesus and his identity. But ancient readers of the text may have gotten a whole different idea about Satan from this interaction that us moderns are missing. My name's Ken. I'm a full-time missionary that's been abroad for 5 years. I'm also a researcher and teacher that seriously digs history, especially ancient religious history. And I teach classes online too. You should check them out in my profile. In our culture, we see Satan as the architect of evil, this powerful entity. I mean, just look at how our culture sees the figure of Satan. Look at the movies, the books, yada, yada. But ancient readers of Matthew 4 would have had a different understanding of Satan from this meeting. And it's not flattering. They would have seen Satan as playing right into Jesus' hand and coming off as quite stupid and powerless. To understand this, we have to dig into Psalm 91, which Satan quotes in Matthew 4. When tempting Jesus. Even non-Christians have heard Psalm 91. It's part of the soldier's prayer in the U.S. Army. It figures into popular songs and media productions, quoting the line, "He that dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty." Jewish tradition ascribes Psalm 91 to Moses, with David gathering it in the book of Psalms. Later, Septuagint translators said David wrote it. Or it could obviously be someone else wrote it and attributed it to Moses or David. Truth is, we don't know. But what we do know is that by the 6th through the 4th centuries BC, Psalm 91 was in common use. And it came to be in such common use as a prayer of God's protection that the poem was recited to drive off evil spirits. And by the 3rd to 7th centuries AD, it was inscribed onto protective amulets for both Jews and Christians. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947, Psalm 91 was even there as one of the 4 psalms against demons, which were probably used by the Qumran community for exorcisms. Basically, Psalm 91 been around a long time. But did you know that our version of Psalm 91 differs slightly from the version of Psalm 91 of Jesus' day? As I've discussed before, it's a verifiable fact that the earliest New Testament writers based their understanding of the Old Testament on the Septuagint, a Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible that was in wide use throughout the Mediterranean world. And if you're interested in that bit of history, just check out that video. But in its initial rendering, whether it's from Moses' day, David's day, or a later writer's day, what we call Psalm 91 was about not fearing violent enemies, pestilences, or disasters because we are with God. You shall not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, or of the destruction that wastes at noon. And that's Psalm 91, 5-6. But in the 3rd through the 2nd centuries BC, when the Hebrew scriptures were translated to Greek, the Greek translators saw references to demonic forces. And this isn't because Greek translators were terrible or were trying to steer the conversation a certain way, but it was a simple assumption to make because vowels were not included in the ancient Hebrew text that they translated from. So depending on what vowels were attached, the words pestilence and destruction could be translated as thing and evil spirit / demon. And the Greek translators, when it came to choosing between the different meanings, well, this is that same verse in the Septuagint. Thou shalt not be afraid of terror by night, nor of the arrow flying by day, nor of the evil thing that walks in darkness, nor of calamity and the evil spirit at noonday. See the difference? Now, of course, our Bible's Old Testament nowadays are based off the Masoretic versions of the Hebrew Bible, but the original writers of the New Testament were Greek, writing off of a Greek text, the Septuagint. This was their understanding of the text, and this was the understanding of the text during Jesus' day. Yes, even in Israel, as most Hebraic people could not speak Hebrew. They spoke Aramaic and were more likely to speak functional Greek than ancient Hebrew. Hence the reason why when Paul's letters were written, when the Gospels were written, Greek. So let's think about this. When Satan tempts Jesus in Matthew 4, 5-6, it says, "Then the devil took him to the holy city and set him on the pinnacle of the temple and said to him, 'If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, He will command His angels concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone.'" And Jesus whips back out with Deuteronomy 6:16. "Again it is written, you shall not put the Lord your God to the test." And that's Matthew 4:7. But Jesus also knows all about Psalm 91. He knows the intent of Psalm 91. And in context, Psalm 91 is about God's promise of his protection to those who make God their dwelling place, and that God's safety can look different than what we think in our humanity. But ancient readers and hearers who base their understanding of the Hebrew Bible off the Septuagint would have also known that the very verses that Satan is referencing out of context was from a prayer that guarded against demons. Satan was literally quoting from a prayer that was designed to disempower himself. Literally, Satan could have picked a verse out from anywhere, and he literally cherry-picked verses from a prayer designed to drive him away. In Matthew 4, to those familiar with the Septuagint, Satan isn't coming across as a grand master and architect of evil. He's pretty much coming across as a bumbling idiot when confronting the Son of God. This isn't a cosmic battle of wits. This is literally showing Jesus' mastery of Satan, calling him out at his own game that he had been playing since the earth began. Satan literally played into Jesus' hand and was defeated and called out at his own game of twisting Scripture, as if when Satan matched against the Son of the God of the universe, like Jesus had anything to fear from such an inferior opponent. Quite honestly, ancient readers probably would have had a little chuckle when reading it. So what's the lesson? Number 1, never empower a disempowered devil. Number 2, don't cherry pick verses, especially when it's going against the context of what you're pulling from. It can get your butt in trouble. And number 3, studying Bible history and translations reveals so much crazy stuff about faith and belief, and it's a lot of fun. And click on the pinned videos for more.